want you to stop for a second and think about this. When your parents bought their first home, how old were they? 26, 28, maybe 30? Now, there's a number that should make your jaw drop. In 2025, the National Association of Realtors released data showing that the average age of a first-time home buyer in America hit a record high, 40 years old. Let that sink in for a minute. And here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the suburbs, we are right there with that number in some pockets. We are worse, actually. Think about what that actually means. A generation of people who did everything right. They went to school, they got jobs, they saved. They were told over and over that home ownership was the cornerstone of the American dream. And they're still renting or living in their parents' basements, quite frankly, at 38, 39, and now 40 years of age. Not because they're lazy, not because they're irresponsible, but because the system, the market, the interest rates, the inventory, the investors made it nearly impossible. Today, we're going to break it all down. The real numbers, the real reasons, and what, if anything, you can actually do about it right now in the Twin Cities. So, who is this happening to? Before we get into the data, I want to paint a picture for you, because this is not an abstract economic problem. This is a real people problem. I'm talking about the teacher in Bloomington who has been saving for 6 years and still cannot compete with cash offers. I'm talking about people in St. Paul, both working full-time, who make combined $90,000 a year and cannot qualify for a home at the median price. I'm talking about a software developer in Minneapolis who earns 6 figures, has great credit score, and is still renting a 1-bedroom apartment because every house they put an offer in on went $20,000 over asking. These are not edge cases. These are the norm here in the Twin Cities right now. And there is a generational dimension that nobody is talking about loudly enough. Millennials, people born between 1981 and 1996, were supposed to be the home buying generation right now. They are between the ages of 29 and 44. They're in their peak home buying years by every historical measure. But they entered the housing market at the worst possible time. Actually, they did it twice. First, the 2008 financial crash wiped out all of their early 20s, just when they should have been building wealth and saving for down payments. Then, just as they were recovering, COVID hit in 2020. And while some people made it out like bandits in the market, the people who did not already own a home got left further and further behind as prices frankly exploded. And now, interest rates are still elevated. Prices have not come down nearly enough, and we are sitting here in 2026 asking why the average first-time buyer is 40 years old. The answer, it's really not complicated. We just have to be honest about it. Let's get into the actual numbers here in the Twin Cities, because I want you to see exactly what we're dealing with. As of January 2026, the median home price in the Twin Cities Metro is $375,000. Now, do some math together here. If you're a first-time home buyer, lenders typically want you to put down somewhere between 5 and 20%. A 20% down payment on a $375,000 home is a $75,000 amount, right? $75,000 in cash before you even touch closing costs, which will run you another $8,000 to $15,000. We're talking about needing close to $90,000 liquid just to get in the door on a median priced home. The median household income in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro is around $80,000 a year before taxes. You do the math on how long it takes to save $90,000 when you're also paying rent, student loans, a car payment, and groceries, and maybe go out to the bar or have a little fun here and there. And here's the kicker. It gets worse when you look at what those mortgage payments actually look like right now. The current interest rates still hovering around 6% to 6.5%. A $375,000 home with 20% down gives you a monthly mortgage payment of roughly $2,000 before property taxes, before insurance, before HOA fees if applicable. Add all of that to a typical Twin Cities property, and you're looking at $2,600 to $2,700 a month minimum. And remember, that is if you already have the $75,000 down payment sitting in your bank account. Now, there's something that does not get talked about enough. The National Association of Realtors just identified the Twin Cities as the most rate-sensitive housing market in the entire United States, right? It's the most rate-sensitive in the country. So what does that mean? It means that if mortgage rates drop just 1 point, say from 6 down to 5%, 81,000 additional Twin Cities households would suddenly qualify to buy a home. Let that sink in. 81,000 families sitting on the sideline, ready to flood this market the moment rates significantly move. That is both hopeful and, quite frankly, terrifying, depending on which side of the transaction you're on. So how did we get here? How did we end up in a world where 40 is the new first-time home buyer? I want to walk you through 3 forces that collided to create this situation, because understanding the why is how you should start to figure out what to do about it. So force number 1, the Great Lockup. When mortgage rates were at historic lows in 2020 and 2021, we're talking 3%, 2.75%. Well, millions of homeowners locked in those rates. And now many of them, guess what? They're just not moving. And why would they? If you have a 3% mortgage and you sell your house to buy another one at 6%, your monthly payment could double on a similarly priced home. Nobody's willing to do that. So what happened? Well, frankly, the inventory collapsed. All of those homeowners who would be selling, downsizing, moving, upgrading, guess what? They're staying right where they are right now. They're staying put. They are golden handcuffed to their current homes because of their record low 3% interest rate. Here in the Twin Cities, we saw new listings drop 10.8% just in January of this year compared to the prior year. 10.8% fewer homes coming new to the market. Less supply plus the same demand equals higher prices every time. So force number 2, the investor effect. Guess what? Between 2020 and 2023, institutional investors, large corporations, private equity firms, and real estate investment trusts purchased single-family homes at a scale we have never seen before in American history. They did not buy these homes to live in them. They bought these homes to rent them out, to turn the American dream into their revenue stream. In some of the most affordable neighborhoods in the Twin Cities, like Minneapolis, investors bought up those starter homes, the exact homes the first-time home buyers need, and they converted them to rentals, removing them from the for-sale market almost permanently in most cases. And the result, the supply of entry-level homes priced under $300,000, essentially, unfortunately, has evaporated. So force number 3, the cost of building. You might be thinking, why don't they just build more homes? Supply and demand, simple, right? Well, here's the problem. The cost to build a new home in the Twin Cities metro has skyrocketed. Labor costs are up, material costs are up, permitting and regulatory hurdles have gotten more complex and expensive. Land in desirable areas is also more expensive, and builders cannot profitably construct a starter home and sell it for under $300,000 anymore. So they don't. They build luxury homes and upper middle market homes where the margins make sense for them. And who can blame them, right? They're in the business to make money too. The result is the bottom of the market. The starter home has effectively been discontinued, and first-time home buyers are left scrambling for the crumbs in many cases. So what this actually feels like, let's talk a little bit about the human costs. I want to take a step back from the numbers for a minute, because behind every statistic is a person. And I think it's important to acknowledge what this actually feels like to many people. It feels like you're running a race where the finish line keeps moving. You save enough for a 5% down payment, and then prices go up 15%, and now you're back to square one and have to save more. You finally get pre-approved and you start making offers, and then you lose to someone paying cash over and over again. You watch your parents who bought their home for $140,000 in 1994 tell you to save more money. And you love them, but you also want to scream at the top of your lungs at them. You feel like the whole system was designed for people who were born 20 years before you. And here is what nobody says out loud. Renting is not failure. But for a generation that was told homeownership equals stability, equals wealth building, equals the American dream, being stuck renting at 38 feels like a failure, even when it's not your fault. The psychological weight of this is real. The feeling that you're always one unexpected expense away from disaster because you have no equity, no asset, no foundation underneath you, that weight is not talked about enough. And I think it matters that we name it. Okay, I do not want to leave you in the darkness, because there's actually is movement happening in the Twin Cities market right now. And depending on your situation, it could matter a lot. Here is what is changing. The frenzy is over. The era of waiving inspections, offering $50,000 over asking, and losing to 30 other bidders in a single weekend, well, that has largely cooled off, thank God, in the Twin Cities. In January 2026, homes sat on the market on average 22 days before going under contract. Compare that to the pandemic era when homes were gone in hours. Well, that's totally different. Pending sales are down nearly 13%, and new listings are up. Inventory has grown. This means buyers have some leverage they have not had in years. You can negotiate. You can ask for seller concessions, meaning the seller pays down your interest rate, covers closing costs, or makes repairs before closing. Deals that were unthinkable 2 years ago are happening right now. This is what local real estate professionals are calling the Great Housing Reset. The white hot, take it or leave it market, I know what I have, so don't lowball me market, has been replaced by something more human. And there is more. Minneapolis has state programs specifically designed to help first-time buyers. The Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, MHFA, offers down payment assistance. Some programs provide up to $17,000 in help towards your down payment. That's real money. There are also first-generation buyer programs for teachers and public servants, and income-based programs that could dramatically lower the barrier to entry. And these programs, perfect solutions? No. Do they solve systematic problems? Absolutely not. But if you're sitting at 37 years old watching this video and thinking homeownership is impossible, you might be surprised at what is actually available to you. The other piece of good news, and I want to say this carefully, is that Twin Cities is still one of the most affordable major metros in the country. The median home price here is $375,000. Compare that to Denver at $550,000, Austin at $450,000, or Seattle at $650,000, Boston, New York, San Francisco. We're not even going to talk about those numbers. The Twin Cities has a strong job market, a high quality of life, incredible parks, great schools. We are a Fortune 500 headquarters city. The economic foundation here is solid. This is not a market that's collapsing. This is a market that is recalibrating. So what should you actually do? What really do you do with all this information? All right, you have heard the problem. You understand the history. You know the numbers. So what do you actually do if you're a Twin Cities millennial who wants to buy a home? I want to give you 4 things to think about. Not financial advice, just an honest perspective from someone who has been watching this market closely for decades. Number 1, get educated before you get pre-approved. Most people walk into home buying processes knowing almost nothing. They get pre-approved for a number, they start shopping, and they get emotionally attached to a house they cannot actually afford when all the costs are factored in. Knowing your total number, not just the mortgage payment, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance reserves, the HOA. In Minnesota, property taxes are real. You need to budget for them. Number 2, look at the first ring suburbs with a fresh set of eyes. I know everybody wants to live in Northeast Minneapolis or Longfellow or Mac Groveland over in St. Paul. Those neighborhoods are fantastic. They really are. They are also competitive and fairly expensive. But have you looked at Columbia Heights? Have you looked at Brooklyn Center, Robbinsdale, South St. Paul, Crystal, to name a few? These are first ring suburbs with real character, reasonable prices, and improving amenities. The cool restaurants and coffee shops are following the buyers. The buyers who get there first are going to be the winners. Number 3, look into Minnesota housing programs before you assume you cannot afford to buy. Seriously, guys, go to mnhousing.gov. Again, mnhousing.gov. Look at the startup program. Look at the step-up program for existing homeowners. Look at down payment assistance options. You may be surprised at what you actually qualify for. Number 4, if you're buying in this market, you can negotiate, especially if the home has been on the market for longer than a couple weeks. The market has shifted enough that you have real leverage as a buyer right now. Ask for a rate buy down. Ask for the seller to cover some closing costs. Get an inspection. Always get an inspection. The days of waiving your rights are completely over. And if you're not ready to buy yet, that's okay too. But be intentional about your savings. Every dollar of home equity you build is a dollar of generational wealth you are creating. The sooner you start, the more time that wealth has to grow. So the bigger picture, what needs to change? I want to zoom out for a minute and say something that I think needs to be said. This is not a personal finance problem. This is a policy problem, and it requires policy solutions. We need more housing supply, period. The math does not work any other way. You cannot solve a supply problem with demand side interventions alone. This means cities, including Minneapolis and St. Paul, need to make it easier, faster, and cheaper to build homes. Zoning reform, permitting reform, reducing the bureaucratic function that adds months and tens of thousands of dollars to development timelines. Minneapolis has actually been a national leader in some of this. The 2040 comprehensive plan that eliminated single-family only zoning across the entire city was a big deal, allowing duplexes, triplexes, and small apartment buildings in neighborhoods that previously only allowed one house per lot is exactly the right direction. But it takes time, and we needed to start 20 years ago. On the state level, Minnesota has made some moves, expanding down payment assistance, investing in affordable housing and construction, but there is still a massive gap between what exists and what is needed. And on the federal level, the mortgage interest reduction, which disproportionately benefits wealthy homeowners, continues to exist while first-time homebuyers struggle to piece together a down payment. There is a real conversation to be had about whether our tax code is structured in a way that helps or hurts housing accessibility. I am not here to tell you who to vote for or what policies to support. I am here to tell you that the problem is real. The causes are structural, and the solutions require more than personal responsibility and budgeting tips. This generation was not lazy. The ladder got pulled up, frankly. I want to close with something honest. I do not know exactly when this market turns in a meaningful way for first-time homebuyers. Nobody does. Anybody who tells you they know precisely where interest rates are going, or where inventory will flood the market, or when prices will become truly affordable, again, frankly, they're guessing, just like everybody else. Here's what I do know. The Twin Cities is one of the best cities in America to build a life. The jobs are here, the culture is here, the parks, the lakes, the neighborhoods, the food scene, the music, it's all right here. This is not a city people are fleeing in droves. It is a city people want to be in. And the housing market, for all its dysfunction, is starting to show cracks of opportunity for buyers who are prepared and patient. If you're 40 years old and you're buying your first home this year, congratulations, right? Seriously, you navigated one of the hardest economic environments in modern history and you made it work. That is not embarrassing. That is being resilient. If you are 32 and you still feel like everything's out of reach, keep watching this channel. Keep educating yourself. Keep saving. The window is not closed. It is just narrower than it should be. And that is worth being angry about, believe you me. But anger is more useful when it is directed at systems, not at yourself. If this video hit different, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your story in the comments below. I read them all. And if you want to go deeper on the Twin Cities market, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to understand what the heck is happening, hit that subscribe button. We are going to do videos like this every week. And if you're thinking about buying a home in the Twin Cities or selling a home and want to talk to someone, there's a link below to book a free call with the HUERKAMP Home Group. No pressure, no pitch, just a real conversation, just like this one, about what the market means to you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video and at the next house.